Hello. Welcome back. For those of you who do not know me, thank you for listening to this and watching this as well. If you're on YouTube, this is kind of a new fun thing for me. I've kind of been in the CSM space now for several years, and I've coached people. I've transitioned and made the pivot from hotels and hospitality into customer success, and I've been in the HR tech world now for several years, getting promoted to a senior CSM, and I've really taken on the lead and initiative around being a AI-enabled CSM, and really that's sort of my guiding principle within this podcast is to share examples and workflows and real life examples talking about customer success and tech in today's world. Um, and really, how over the last year, I've been the person on my team who has really become, obsessed with figuring out how AI fits actually into this job. Not like robots are coming in the way, but let me cut prep time down. Let me put this into my actual workflow and my day to day. And I've been building these workflows. I've been testing and trialing tools and vibe coding, if you will. And that's really what I'm trying to do here. And my goal with this podcast. So again, thank you for listening. And today's episode, what I do want to start to kind of dive into a little bit is AI workflows and sort of certain calls, right? So now, obviously, in the customer success space, you might have an array of calls. You might have, we call them partnership calls. Could be success planning calls. And really, the goals with those might be like, okay, new biz lands a client, and then your role as the CSM is to be that point of contact for the duration of that contract with that client. So whether it's 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it may be, indefinitely, like your goal is to be that consultant, that lead, that point of contact for them. So in partnership calls, you're going to introduce the partnership journey, the life cycle, the implementation, the adoption, the renewal process, and expansion, and driving value and success metrics. Now, you can also combine that either in that call or success planning calls, where you're going to have sort of an agreed upon terms of like, why did they come to your software? Why did they come to your solution versus whatever they currently had or whatever they are seeking? Obviously, in my world, it's HR tech, it's talent management. So it's performance cycles, it's integrations with payroll, it's an ATS, which is sort of a buzzword now in the landscape, but it's onboarding documents. So it's taking those candidates from the job posting world into the ATS, going through the workflow pipeline to onboarding new hires, background checks, whatever it may be, paperwork, getting them as a new hire, and then really getting them success planning and skill development with performance reviews, compensation, whatever. So we do all of these items in this HR solution, right? And there's obviously competitors and other software in that space. So it's important for those types of calls for you as the CSM to identify why from the sales, from these calls and whatever, that like, why did the client choose you? What are they looking for? Is it to consolidate systems? Is it for robust integrations? Is it for they didn't have an ATS or a formal tracker? They didn't like the lacking features of that was before? Or what are they trying to adopt and develop? So then from that success planning call, you can actually outline whether it's time to fill metrics. Is it ROI? Is it just reducing paper? And they just want to consolidate systems. So you have that success planning call, right? And there could be other calls as well, internal calls, implementation calls, onboarding calls, sales handover calls, partner calls if you have partner integrations and API integrations as well. And then you have sort of success planning checkpoints, whether that's monthly, quarterly, bi-month, or biannual, whatever it may be, that are QBRs, account reviews, product releases, technical pieces, re-implementation, whatever it may be. So all of these calls in conjunction with internal ones lead CSMs to feel burnt out, tired, um, and looking for ways to amplify or 10x their productivity, whether it's a new product feature. How do you get yourself quickly ramped up to speed with that product and questions? If it's a success call in an account, how do you get yourself ramped up as quickly as possible with that account so you don't have to waste time, which might take you normally, 4, 5, 6 hours of getting acquainted with a client or their usage, their business needs. This is really where the world of AI and becoming more of a AI enabled customer success manager is very powerful. So I do want to spend some time on that a little bit today of sort of the ins and outs with that. Um, Give you a little bit of, brief insight to what I've been doing across the company and ways you can kind of go about this if you haven't done so before. All right. So let's get into this a little bit. So this right here, you can see it's a little jumbled, but that's okay. Well, I'm just going to kind of walk through these things, and I more just want this as a visual. So if you're watching this, obviously on Spotify with the visual, or on my YouTube, you can actually sort of follow along. And I think these are kind of helpful too, to sort of just illustrate the points and the topics. And this was actually just pulled from Claude. So you can kind of do these things, whether it's using whatever LLM you're using, whether it's, Meta's Llama, or using Anthropic with Claude, or you're using OpenAI with ChatGPT. I've leaned into more of Claude, but it's also going to depend on approved tools, enterprise licenses, whatever it may be, for company and client data that you're using. If it's just for personal, that might be a little bit different, but it's always something you want to just have that understanding. And like, are those companies that you're working with, do they have these AI addendums and policies and team leads and approved tools and these ways of, addressing like, what are we using or not using? So, but in the sense of being an AI enabled CSM, right? And these are kind of like, it's a little jumbled here, but it's sort of like number one would be like getting to know your customer. Number two was sort of generating your agenda. Number three is anticipating objections. And number four is writing that opening 60 seconds, right? And that doesn't have to be so set in stone, but I think this is a good workflow use case, whether it's the first call, an account review, a QBR, a renewal discussion, is you have either call transcripts or you have email notifications, whether it's in Salesforce, whether it's in Gong. You have the ability to pull this data, Zendesk, product usage, CRM notes, right? So you can actually create a getting to know your customer process and have either a starter prompt or just have that as sort of a foundational key piece in there. So that's really going to kind of lay the groundwork so then you can have that AI layer to then ask and pose questions beyond that. So then you can really start to have kind of that prompt engineering piece of generating your agenda from these call transcripts, the Zendesk notes, product related items, sales handover notes, business needs, objections, pricing, contract, whatever it may be, so let AI, what normally might have taken an hour, they can generate a prompt and you can export it to Google Doc, or you can export it to whatever thing you're working on. You can add your team members to work and collaborate on that. So now you have sort of a working agenda here based off of all the foundation, right? And literally that can be happened in 1 minute. And obviously with the scope of like, what's the purpose of the call, you know objections too. And I think that's important too, of like, is it a renewal discussion? Is it a technical call? So like, you might want to say like, AI can role play. So like, what I've done before is you can actually give it a prompt to act as someone, maybe a detractor or a skeptical person, and then you can actually have a voice to a conversation as well, whether you're going into a renewal discussion and they can ask you um, questions related to the pricing of the contract to sort of prep you ahead of time, right? And then really strong opening, right? A warm, confident 3 sentence, call opener, referencing their, wins and everything. So, and I think this is really good because I think the tonality and how you actually want to present the conversation is important. And all of these things lead credence to like the power of AI, and especially in the world now of getting faster and more AI first enabled. Now, don't really necessarily worry about like physically copying this, but this is sort of like a good example of prompts. And I am probably going to do separate episodes on prompt engineering itself, specific to CSM and my methodology, which is called PCO, which is persona, context, and output. And I'll do more of a deep dive on that. But this is kind of an example, like whether you're using Claude, Gong, OpenAI, or if you have an in-house tool, whatever it may be, is like you want to give the context, right, of the health score, renewal date, whatever it may be for your client, the plan. Here are the last call notes. Here's the context. Here's this, and then really like what's the goal. So this is really like who are you speaking to? Are you speaking to the decision maker? Are you speaking to the end user? Have you multi-threaded that account? So this is a good example of using the foundation of the call transcripts, of the notes, of the emails, of the sales handover docs, giving the context, giving the contract information, who are you talking to, giving the last call details, and then what's the output do you want? Do you want it to create an email? Do you want it to draft a prep sheet? Do you want it to act as someone and you kind of riff questions back and forth? Do you want it to generate a slide deck? Like, what is the output that you want as well? Right? So customize it per call, paste the real notes, not just summaries. And then obviously you can save that as a folder, as a template, even in Gemini. I believe you can kind of pin those conversations, which is super, super useful as well. And I think this was one that I wanted to kind of do more because this kind of showcases we in the CSM world. There's a plethora of calls, right? There is QBR business reviews. There's renewal conversations, check-ins, onboarding calls, and escalation, right? So these are sort of like examples of like once you sort of have done these once or twice, you can adapt and develop these to make yourself faster, more productive, sharing your managers, sharing account managers, sharing product on these items, right? So all of these, you know, items is really different ways. Here's the prompt: focus on renewal risks for. So you're adding the context, right? This is a relationship maintenance called surface quiet risk and expand my champion map, right? Stakeholder mind mapping, whatever it may be as well. So you can also relate it to the call that you want and then save those as a source on that file as well. And all of this will help you with your notes, your documentation moving forward, and more bulletproof you moving forward for future calls. And it'll also allow you to have better notes and details when communicating these. Maybe they're at risk or they're up for renewal or whatever it may be with your manager in one-on-one documentation and in your CRM as well. You can actually have these much more robust factors. Cool. So that's a little snippet of just sort of the initial look of sort of the world of workflows. Obviously, us in customer success, there's not even just those, there's probably 10 other types of calls. And those prior to 2 years ago was, creating your own notes, literally rewatching call transcripts, literally getting on Slack syncs. These can all speed up these processes, which normally would maybe take 1 to 3 hours, can now take a half an hour or less. And once you sort of do these things in a couple times, you will become, as we're kind of talking, more AI enabled. You'll be more comfortable with using the systems. The outputs will be better. You can save them in folders and projects and gems, which is in the Gemini, which I'm going to have probably a separate episode on. So it'll make you faster. Your notes will be better. Your outcomes will be more fine tuned and crisp as well. So thank you again for watching this episode. If you keep liking this content as well, hopefully, I'm going to stick with this. I do think this is interesting in the world of customer success and really becoming more AI enabled moving forward. So we'll see you in the next one.